Hello, everyone, and good morning. Thank you for joining us today. We're honored that you've chosen to share your morning with us to take a virtual pulse check on our teams as we continue to ride the work from home wave. My name is Allison Price. I'm Tech Alliance's Director of Experiences. As the Regional Innovation Center for Southwestern Ontario, Tech Alliance is committed to people who have big hopes, big dreams, and see big opportunities. We are the place for dreamers, innovators, and world-changing ideas. We empower world-class ventures and fuel growth in Canada's innovation economy by championing and amplifying the businesses that are part of our vibrant technology community. Before we get started, I'd just like to share a few key points. Today, everyone is muted. Our webcast is being recorded, but will be available on our YouTube channel following the session. If you have a question at any point, please just drop it in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen. And please feel free to add comments throughout to the chat. If you'd like to stay in touch and hear pertinent news from the regional innovation economy, please sign up for our newsletter and follow us on social via the links that will be thrown in the chat. On to the main event. As we all know, the traditional office landscape has been transformed. This transformation has highlighted the power of individuality amongst our team members, the opportunity to broaden our talent pool, and has created collisions we may have never thought were possible. At the same time, some folks may be feeling depleted by not having daily interaction with their colleagues. Additional barriers may have been created for already marginalized communities, and overall, our culture may be struggling. Agile short-term solutions enabled teams to transition into remote work environments at the onset of the pandemic. And now, almost a year in, we ask, are those solutions still upholding the foundation of who we are? Today, we are joined by Terry Gillis, whose passion is to make the world's workforce the best it can be, one organization at a time. Welcome, Terry.
Good morning.
Terry is the president and CEO of Ahria Consulting and author of Desuckify Work. Terry has grown Ahria Consulting, a regional talent management and human resources firm based right here in London, Ontario, to be the go-to consultancy for people solutions in the workplace. Terry also serves as chair of the board of managers for Career Partners International, the world's largest independent talent management consultancy. And Terry has over 25 years of experience attracting, retaining, and transitioning people within organizations. He holds a Bachelor of Science in Psychology, a Master of Applied Science in Organizational Psychology, and an MBA. He is also a certified professional coach. And if you find that after today's webcast, the time you spent with Terry just wasn't enough, you can double up tomorrow by booking a one-on-one virtual office hour session where Terry will be available to answer additional questions specific to your business. The link to book a 45-minute time slot with Terry will be dropped into the chat. So without further ado, Terry, I'm passing it over to you.
Well, thank you. I'm flying blind here, so hopefully you can see the slides, you can see me, although I'm probably not nearly as important as the content of the slides. So I assume we're all good. So awesome. Thank you for that introduction. And whenever I hear that introduction, it just makes me feel very old. That's all. That's all I have to say about that. So thanks for joining us today. And it's a compelling topic, obviously, in the world that we find ourselves in today. It's interesting because, if you think about Back to the Future, or Back to Reality, people ask me the question, when do you think we're going to get back to normal? And it's almost like playing bingo now. It's like, or betting on the ponies as to when we're going to be back. I don't know that we ever will be back to what, we once considered to be normal. What we do know is that what was before is not likely to be the same again. And I think we need to be prepared for that eventuality. I was one of the people back in March, April, May of 2020 who was railing against the whole notion of the new normal because I don't think this is normal. However, I do think that what we're seeing is a fundamental change in terms of how we work, how we live, how we play, how we go about our lives. So, the new reality is, if you were big on Agile before, a year ago, and believe it or not, a year ago, this world we live in now is completely foreign to us. Agile truly is more than just a buzzword now. COVID really is VUCA on steroids. It really has changed the landscape under which we all operate and which our organizations have had to, and yes, if you're playing COVID bingo at home under the B for or under the P for pivot, I'm going to use that term, really has caused us to fundamentally shift how we're going about doing our work. Um, so that's our new reality, and we need to, if you weren't embracing it before, it's time we're going to need to embrace it going forward, because that agility is really at the forefront of what it is to be successful moving forward. March, April of last year, you remember that? I know I do. The only thing I could liken it to was like a maze. Maybe some of you have done this if you have kids or remember your time going through corn mazes or whatnot. They're kind of fun at first until you keep running around in the same location and you kind of get stuck. At first it's kind of okay, you can deal with it. But here's the deal. After a while, you start making mistakes and you really start to get a little bit anxious, and that gets coupled with you start to doubt yourself, and fundamentally you start to lack confidence in your ability. And maybe some of you are better at this than I am, but I remember times being in these things with my kids and trying to be the stoic parent, almost in sheer panic because I didn't know how to code. And I liken March and April of last year to that, kind of being in that maze, in that fog almost, if you will, of we make a lot of mistakes. We made a lot of mistakes. However, I think that there has been, like, come out of that is some fundamental learnings, and some of that learning that's happened is how we can be agile and how we can be a little bit more able to pivot and adjust accordingly. But what I'm curious about, and if Sarah, my dear friend, who's going to be helping run the background of this, I have a poll that I'm curious about is, what's your current work arrangement? So are you 100% from home, or are you in a hybrid where it's mostly work from home, or is it a hybrid model where sort of equal split between home and workplace? Maybe it's hybrid model, but it's mostly at the workplace, or what's work from home? So just curious as to what is out there, and we're starting to see some responses coming in. So about 74% of you have voted now, and this is interesting. It's always fun doing polls and moments like this. You never know what you're going to get. You sort of suspect it is. So anyway, all right. So a few of you haven't voted yet, so you can jump in. Not that it's going to change things too drastically at this point, I don't think, but I'd say I think we can probably close that poll. So there you go. Sharing the poll results now. So as you can see on this one, 61% of people 100% working from home. Imagine a year ago if I told the 61% of you on this webinar with us today, if I told you you'd be working 100% from home. Some of you might have said, "Yeah, that's what I did all the time." I suspect some of you might be scratching your head. So 90 or 88% are at home or mostly working from home. A few, and just a few of you that are actually still at the workplace or mostly at the workplace. Interesting. So, fundamentally, and took a chance on this, but here's the deal. Work-life balance has been completely turned on its head. Remember, we used to talk about work-life balance like a year ago? Work-life balance, trying to get that balance between work and life, and that there was this, we should have definitive divide between these two concepts and whatnot. Now it's the same thing. I know that I work from my office, have with the exception of one morning back in March, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't work from home. Dogs barking, kids screaming about Wi-Fi. I had three of them at home. One just back from university. All the Wi-Fi was cutting in and out. Trying to do meetings like this with really low bandwidth doesn't work so well, and printers that didn't work, et cetera, et cetera. And I just said, you know what, our building is empty. There was nobody here, and I just decided to come back into our building. I just couldn't do it. Most of you have, according to this poll here, have had to make that change and go over into a work from home kind of arrangement. So what do you know about working from home? Well, these are some of the things that I've sensed as we've worked with organizations for the better part of the last year. One of the big ones is now there's no boundaries, right? Where one of my good friends every time I connect with him on a Zoom call or MS Teams meeting or whatever, I go, where are you? And he says, well, I'm at my kitchen table because he's got, 3 or 4 kids. One's in the office, one's in bedroom, so he's been relegated to the kitchen table. How do you work at the place you eat? Like, this is so weird to me. And there's just no boundaries between work and home. It's always in your face, even when you're trying to decompress, which we all know is important. It's always there. There's disconnectedness. Yes, this is lovely and it's great that we can connect with each other over these mediums, but the same as being there. And if you look at the human beings, we are fundamentally hardwired to be together. We really truly are. And when we're not, it causes a lot of stress. Look at the literature now and the conversations that are happening now with respect to wellness and mental health with respect to working from home. This is tough because we're disconnected from each other. We have a whole new appreciation now for family members, pets, all the different noises that come from working from home. In the summertime was fun as somebody was mowing the lawn with your windows open. I remember being on a few calls like that. It was always kind of interesting. You suddenly the person, you can't hear them. Kind of interesting. The same scenery day after day after day after day with little to no interaction with other people starts to wear a little thin. Zoom fatigue. Here's the deal. Here's the research shows this fundamentally and unequivocally to be true. Virtual interactions are hard on the brain. It's hard. This is hard on our brains. Why? Because we look for the nonverbal. When you're in a meeting with a group of people in your life, your brain is looking for those cues, those clues to say what's happening, what's going on, what's happening in these different places, and always looking for that nonverbal communication. Those of us who've looked at nonverbal communication know that up to 90% of the message comes from nonverbal. It's lost on a little box on a little tiny screen, all lost. Eye contact, so important. But how many times have you been on a Zoom meeting where instead of looking at the camera, people are looking down here? That's not eye contact, and it's lost. So the brain is freaking out because it doesn't have that connectivity. And then in a meeting like this, and I had the pleasure of teaching university last term through this medium that we're using today. And while you might be having a dialogue with one student or one participant, everybody else is kind of on the periphery. They're kind of checked out a little bit, right? Or the not so subtle art or subtle task or a subtle art of multitasking, right? When somebody's on their phone and they're in a meeting and this is all you see, and they're anyway, kind of interesting. So makes it kind of fun to watch people try to do that. And then the fallacy of collaboration, it just doesn't matter. Fundamentally, what this all means is we have a high degree of stress. Okay, stress is pervasive in this environment. So I get a lot of messages that my AirPods are not working really well. So in that context, what I may do, if it's okay with you folks, is switch over to hardwire. That's going to take me a second.
Beautiful aspect of technology. So, and yes, Trevor, this has illustrated the challenges of connecting virtually. Thank you for that commentary. So, but even though we don't like this, and I got to be honest, I don't like this. It is our new reality that we're in. We can't just tolerate it. We have to embrace it. Okay, let's switch up to a poll, and our next poll is going to be on a scale of 1 to 10, where 5 is totally, or 1 to 5, where 5 is totally connected, and 1 is completely isolated. How are you feeling in your work from home situation? Okay. So are you feeling that I feel totally isolated and lonely? By the way, this is completely anonymous. We have no idea what you're saying. I'm feeling pretty balanced. Some of you totally connected. Where are you with this? In terms of some balance of being isolated or loneliness, where are we with this? So what do we got? 59, 60, look at this. Excellent, 63, good numbers. All right, 87% voted. Give it a few more seconds, Sarah. That'd be great. Okay. All right. So there's our response. So the good old Canadian compromise, right down the middle, always the case in polls. 42% is sort of finding a balance between being connected and being isolated. So what would be interesting is if we'd done this pre-pandemic. Also 30% more towards the isolated side of things. A few of you feeling completely isolated or totally isolated and lonely. A few of you complete, but by and large, one of the things that this does illustrate is that we are feeling some degree of isolation and we're feeling some degree of disengagement. And this has been amplified as we've looked in, as we have made this change into a work from home environment. So keep that one in the back of your mind for half a second, because what's even more interesting is this little thing that was rampant prior to the pandemic and still is, but has been somewhat suppressed, not talked about as much. But the war for talent. The war for talent is really this. There's not enough people around to do the jobs we need to have done. My mother, who's, God bless her, she's 78 years old, and she likes to have protracted debates with me about why it's so wrong to have self-checkouts in grocery stores and drugstores and whatnot. And I keep trying to tell her that this is because we need to get people trained in terms of how to do their own self-checkout, because there's not enough people to run these machines in the future. And it's not particularly difficult work to self-checkout if you've done it. Scan, pay, away you go. And, you know, she's of the old school that this is taking away jobs. And to a certain extent, currently she may be right. But the reason we're doing these things, the reason technology that this audience is so well versed in, is that we need to be able to do things differently because there's not enough people coming behind us. There simply isn't. Look at the demographics. And that was the war for talent. And it's still in existence today. So you take war for talent and you take isolation, and you've got yourself a cocktail that is pretty epic in terms of its implications. The new reality is this: the pandemic has been a wake-up call for many, many organizations. In many ways, the pandemic has been a diagnostic tool for you and your organizations. If you had a flawed culture prior to the pandemic, it has been amplified by the entire pivot to work from home. It has been amplified by the necessity to work virtually. But the good news in all of this, and this is where I get super excited, as much as that seems odd to be excited about a pandemic, is there's always opportunity in everything. And the opportunity in this is to diagnose where your culture has fallen down and how to fix it so that you can win the war for talent, because this isn't going away. Pandemic or not, the war for talent isn't going away. What has been the impact of COVID on culture? Well, if you look at some measures that we look at that are indicative of how solid our organizations are, if you look at engagement scores, if you had a thriving culture pre-pandemic, not much of a hit to your engagement scores if you had a thriving culture. If you had a non-thriving culture, look at the hit. You're down 50% in terms of engagement. That means people are looking elsewhere. They're going to hit the exits as soon as things in their minds get a little bit better. What about retention? Same deal. Down a little bit in thriving culture. If you had a non-thriving culture prior to pandemic, you're now down again 50 some odd percent. And kudos, and I didn't make this in the slides, so before we share this with people, I'll make sure I put this is from OC Tanner. It's a firm out of the States. If you look at employee net promoter score, you're only down about 5 percentage points or 5 points on a net promoter score. That's not terribly remarkable. 63 points for a non-thriving culture, that's a big deal. And in terms of feeling inclusive and feeling included in an organization, in thriving cultures, you're only down slightly. So this scale would be a little bit different. The poll we just did would be a little bit different. Non-thriving culture, 50%. Unbelievable. If your organization was not thriving, if it did not have a solid culture that worked in lockstep with your strategy pre-pandemic, I'm going to argue that you're probably on the right-hand side of this chart as opposed to the left-hand column. So, you know, culture fundamentally is powerful, and it is incredibly powerful, especially now. Why? Because people are saying, who are we? What are we doing here? What's our organization about? What am I about? What's important here? What's going on? It introduces a whole new level of questions and concerns and worries that thriving cultures are able to deal with. Non-thriving cultures cannot. So Question in the chat box, are those statistics unique to Canada, North America? Those are worldwide statistics, primarily focused. Let's be honest, anything that comes out of North America is North American bias, although it does include, it is a global survey that was referenced there. Culture is absolutely powerful. So now, get ready. What I want to do soon in the chat box, I'm going to watch it, see if we can catch your comments as they go by a little bit. What is culture? What do we mean by culture? It's one of those terms we toss around all the time. Chat box, I'm going to look right here in the chat box, see if we can throw in some ideas. What does culture mean to you? Somebody's asking what ENSP means, Employee Net Promoter Score. So, all right, culture is the norms of the workplace. Thank you, Jean. Connection, the way we do things around here. Alex, thank you for that. Vicky, the way we do things around here. Wonderful. Okay. Catherine, it's the feeling you get when you go to work. Absolutely. Keith Moore, values and norms. Rose, how are you doing today? Alignment, perfect. Written and unwritten rules of the how, right? So lots of different ideas that get shared here. So fundamentally, what culture is, simply the way we do things around here. Some of you mentioned that, this is how things are done around here, which is always interesting. How does that work when all of us are scattered around our homes? Makes it interesting. Okay? It's a blend of symbols and values and beliefs and rituals and myths that all collide together that develop in an organization over time. Okay. I also believe, and this is probably the one that makes the most sense, but still makes it even more difficult to articulate. It's kind of like the personality of the organization from the employee's perspective. That includes the mission, the vision, the expectations, the work atmosphere, right? So, kind of interesting. Here's the other rub, though, and we're going to come back to this in a minute in terms of how we build and influence this thing. But here's the rub, and I think this is powerful. Pre-COVID, and this is pre-COVID data, okay? So just a year ago, seems like an eternity, okay? Only 12% of executives believed that their companies had the right culture. 12% that we have the right culture. So go back to that slide about thriving versus non-thriving cultures. Okay, 12% thought they had a thriving or the right culture. Fascinating. 19% believe that the company has the right culture. And most employers struggle to build a culture that's right for their team. They have a hard time trying to build that. So how do you build a culture? What's involved in building a culture? Well, what do you do to promote, champion, reward, retain people? What's your leader type that you're looking for? What are the values that you're espousing? What's the criteria for effectiveness? So we can actually build out a bit of a roadmap for this. So is the leader that you're looking for aligned to your strategy? Is it a facilitator? Is it a mentor? Is it more a team builder, innovator? Is it more entrepreneurial? The values that you hold near and dear, that you don't just put on the wall, but you actually live and breathe every single day, no matter where your employees happen to be sitting, be it at home or be in the office, be it across the hall or across the street. Communication, do we value that? Do we value development? Do we value cohesiveness, innovation? There's agility again. What are the things that we hold near and dear to our hearts? These are the fundamental building blocks to building a culture. And how do we look at effectiveness? Do we look at effectiveness as are the employees that work for us, are they developing well? Is there high morale? Is there engagement? Are they feeling that they're valued? Are they feeling that they're contributing in a positive way? So that when you look at this and make a snapshot of this in your brains as we go through this, these are the things that we can use. These are the building blocks that we can use to help build culture, okay? So leader type, we've got values, we've got effectiveness, and we can do this through a number of different ways, through narrative, stories, artifacts, the kinds of things that people study when they look at organizational culture. But my question to you is this: what levers do we have in a work from home environment? What levers do we have at our disposal? What levers can we pull on to influence culture? And my argument is now we're somewhat limited because we don't have the ability necessarily to interact spontaneously down the hallway with a coworker, to have those spontaneous conversations, to bring people together in a live session where the nonverbal communication is so pervasive. We're very limited on our communication channels now, and our messages are somewhat thwarted. Case in point, do you have a good headset or not? Hey, little things. That's disrupted our message a little bit today, and I apologize for that. But nonetheless, these are the things that get in the way. Try as you might, plan as you will, these things get in the way. So, I want to ask one more poll question. And the next poll question is a bit of a setup, and I'll give you that tip ahead of time. But here's the question. Do you agree, yes or no, that people are our most important assets? All right, set 83%. 84%. Let's get it to 85. We could do, there was 85. All right, a few more seconds. Sarah, I'm going to let you drive. You tell me when you want to turn this off. We're at 87%, 88%. I feel like I should be, at an auction. All right, look at that. 99% of you, 99% of you. Only one person said no. One person said no. I will not ask you to identify yourself, but I agree with you. What is this guy talking about? Everybody talks about people are our most important assets. I don't believe that your people are your most important assets. Here's why. Because I don't think people are assets. Yeah, in the National Hockey League or Major League Baseball, a member, an employee of your organization can be an asset because you have a contract that you can trade with another team. But last I checked, most of us don't have contracts that we can trade in the open market. I'll give you Sue and Bob if you give me Phil. We don't do that. An asset in your organization is maybe investing in a good, set of headphones that actually have a good microphone. That's an asset. Why? Because I can liquidate it if I get into trouble. I can liquidate my computer. I can liquidate my office. I can take an asset that's available to me and I can sell it and I can liquidate it. You can't sell your staff. You can't sell your employees. Again, unless you're a Major League Baseball team. And if you do have contracts, we should talk. I'd be interested to learn more about that. But most of us don't. But we all embrace this notion of employees are assets. Think about it. Do you manage your assets like your computer systems the same way you do people? If you do, I'd suggest we should have a conversation about that. What if people aren't our most important assets? And some of you right now are thinking, this guy's lost his marbles. What are they? I believe that our employees are our greatest investors. Different. What are they investing? They're investing their time, their energy, their skills, their experience, their knowledge in our organization in an exchange, just like any other investor in our organization would, in exchange for a return. Part of that is cash. Indeed, no question, we want to get paid. Unless you're out there and you don't want to get paid, in which case, please call me. I'll take a volunteer any day. But they want other things too. And we're going to get into that in a moment, but they're looking for other returns on their investment. And when we flip that narrative, when we change that channel, when we flip the paradigm, I argue that we're going to do better at building culture in our organizations, because now, instead of looking at them as just another asset, we're actually looking at those individuals and accepting them for who they are and what they are, and that is they're investors in our organizations. If you've ever been to an investors relation meeting, if you've ever been part of that, organizations will go out of their way to treat investors beautifully. I remember going to one years ago. It was like the best party in the history of humankind. It was unbelievable. Can you imagine the human resource people out there? And you're out there right now going, I'd like to hold a party like that for my employees. They're investors. Maybe we should. So that was a bit of a setup, and I apologize ahead of time, but I just think it's so important to get that message across. It's just one of the things I'm very passionate about. In other words, we need to be more human than ever before in our organization. Leaders need to be good humans and change that narrative of thinking about our people as just another asset. We need to be deliberate. We need to be We need to get to know our people. We need to understand who they are and where they fit inside our organizations. In other words, we have to double down on leadership. If you really want the secret sauce to how do you build culture in your organizations, not just in a work from home environment, but especially in a work from home environment, but at any point in time, we have to double down on leadership. And my question for reflection would be, what has your organization done during this pandemic to enhance your leaders? Because if you've done that, I'm going to argue you're starting to make that pivot, that transformation in your culture. Why is this so important? Because let's face it, fundamentally, leaders today are not good. We do not have good data on leadership. Many people in our organization distrust leaders. 55% of people leave because of a bad leader. 50%, over half your employees think that the leadership in your organization is ineffective. And many organizations are saying they can't develop leaders. 52% of organizations cite management buy-in as the barrier to building a culture. 42% saying that employees feel that the leadership does not contribute to a positive company culture. And leaders drive culture. Here's a very compelling example. Describe for me the culture. Here, why does this keep changing? That's crazy. There we go. Describe the culture, and let's maybe go back a few months because it's kind of nebulous right now. But there's the White House, okay? Does your perception of culture change depending on who it is? Biden has been in long enough for us to really know. But you look at this isn't a political argument. Some of you are probably like going, yeah, great, we got to play. This isn't political. Don't have to be political about this at all. But simply, these two different gentlemen had two completely different styles. I'm not saying one's right, wrong, different. It's not at all. But what we know is traditional leadership was about control, and it was about judging, it was about gatekeeping. Modern leadership is about empowering, developing, and connecting. And I argue those two different individuals had two completely different cultures. Leaders impact culture inside your organization. What do great leaders do? Great leaders, first and foremost, embrace empathy. Okay? And there are three different types of empathy, and we get these confused. There's cognitive empathy, which is simply knowing how that other person feels and what they might be thinking about. Emotional empathy is when you feel alongside the other person. And I just read an interesting debate last week about this, where emotional empathy can be dangerous because if you truly feel somebody else's pain, you might become so entrenched in that pain that you as a leader can't help them move forward. Interesting debate for another time. Compassion, I think, is where it's at. You not only understand how the person feels, but are moved to help them. And that's compassionate empathy. So great leaders embrace empathy. And if we go back to our poll and we go back to our data where we have people at home that are feeling isolated, great leaders understand that. And great leaders are doing something about that because they're displaying and showing and embracing compassionate empathy. And I think that's a critical piece. I also think that emotional intelligence becomes incredibly important. When was the last time that you measured emotional intelligence of your leaders? Okay. Far too often, we see people who are put into leadership positions because they were really good at what they did, at the task. But what they were not good at was leading people and having that emotional intelligence. It's so incredibly important for leadership today. And that's a miss. Great leaders fundamentally embrace a one size fits one, not a one size fits all. I was involved in a session back in, I think it was March, April. Sarah or Allison, correct me on that, with Tech Alliance. It was an HR panel, and we talked about different ways that you can continue to, keep people connected. One of the things we talked about was, maybe get on some Zoom calls and have, different activities and whatnot, games and those gamification of different things, those kinds of things. That's great. That assumes that everybody wants that. Not everybody does. And yet, then they feel compelled to go to that. And that's not just limited to work from home or virtual or COVID kind of reality. That's true all of the time. One size fits one, not one size fits all. It was in April. I'm just seeing in the text box. It was back in April. right? One size fits one. So it's imperative as a leader to get to know your people fundamentally. I want to share with you just very quickly, just a very quick few seconds of this clip. This is actually a 4.5-minute clip from the Cleveland clinic, and it's about well, let's just take a peek at it here. Hopefully this will work.
The sound on the video is not coming through, Terry.
You don't really need sound for this. Just look at the words. It's just music. I'll stop it there. The point that I wanted to demonstrate through this is, as you go through life and you pass people all the time, we all kind of live in the same sort of world that everybody's experiencing the same thing. We're not. Every single one of us has different fears. Every single one of us has different joys. Every single one of us is different on so many different levels. Yet we kind of try to average everything with leadership. Get to know your people. Every single person is different. Some of us are absolutely feeling completely isolated because of work from home. Have that compassion and empathy and connect with those individuals. Some of us are doing just fine, and we don't need. If some of our folks here, if I was to be compassionate and empathetic with them, they'd say, "What's wrong with you? I'm fine. I'm doing great," and they are. They're thriving. Okay, so make sure you get to know your people on an individual level. All right. So the trifecta of motivation, and this has been around for some period of time, is really to embrace individuals' autonomy, their mastery, and their purpose. I'll talk about these as well. And I've added one on, which is connectivity. Okay. Here's an interesting fact I came across. Gen Z, or Gen Z, and millennials are feeling considerably much more isolated than baby boomers and Gen Xers during this pandemic. And part of the reason for that is because they're missing out on these core pieces. Great leadership encourages mastery. Okay? Mastery is let me be really good at my craft. Help me grow. Challenge me. Don't treat me as a number. Give me a special project. Give me a special assignment. Help me grow my skills. Great leadership is about focusing on purpose, aligning individual purpose and organizational purpose. And our generations that are coming behind me, our Gen Zs, our millennials, are purpose people. Oh my goodness, do they love purpose. If you cannot articulate your purpose, you'll lose them, and then your culture is shot. As John O'Brien says, culture eats strategy for breakfast. We've heard this before, but culture gets its appetite from purpose. Purpose is so incredibly important. Why does your organization exist? Why am I, as a member of your organization, important to your success? That's on leaders to be able to articulate that and to be able to explore that conversation with employees. You want a great culture? Have that conversation with your employees, not just individually, but also collectively. Great leadership provides autonomy to individual. Get out of their way. Okay? Some people need to be task managed. They need to be told what to do, but don't assume everybody does. And don't assume that everybody else needs complete autonomy, because some of them actually don't. Understand on a one-to-one basis, one size fits one, what drives your employees. And I guarantee you, if you do that, you're going to have a thriving culture, because your individuals and employees will be thriving within it. The other thing that's important is connectivity. Okay? Connectivity is so important, especially when we're all disconnected physically. We need to be connected. We need to drive our communication channels. Okay? Ensure that we're not checking up on people, but we're checking in with our people. You know, I've heard stories about we're going to put monitors on people's computers to see when they're turning on their computers and when they're showing up for work. Come on. Let's not do that. That's just autocratic dictatorship. Nobody wants to be controlled. Nobody wants to be told what to do. Give them the guardrails and let them drive the car. Give them that autonomy. And I guarantee you, you're going to have an incredibly powerful culture, one of incredible engagement with employees that will do their all to see the success of your organization. When we don't communicate, as C. Northcott Parkinson tells us, the void created by the failure to communicate is soon filled with poison, drivel, and misrepresentation. If you haven't spoken to your work from home employee in the last week, they're filling in the blanks. They're telling themselves all kinds of interesting story. Listen to your own self-talk. Listen to the own narratives that you come up with in your own brain and amplify that from somebody who's isolated from the rest of the team. And they might be on a Zoom call, okay? They might be present in the team meeting, but they're not engaged, they're not talking, and they haven't had a conversation with you in a while. Check in on that person. How are they doing? Show that compassionate empathy, and you're going to bring them along. Don't assume just because they've been part of a meeting that is communication. It is not. Telling is not communication. Communication to me is listening and asking questions. It's about being a coach fundamentally. Great leadership, of course, recognizes individually, but also collectively. Some fun stats. If you are not recognizing your employees, your employee net promoter score will go down about 40 points. You will get a decrease of engagement of about 50%. This is OC Tanner again. This is that global survey referenced earlier. You'll significantly increase the intention to leave by about 25% and significantly increase mental exhaustion. They're saying about 15%. It's nice to be noticed. It's nice to be appreciated. And if you want to know the top 3 root causes of doing great work, recognition is up there. But most people say the recognition in their organization sucks. We're not good at it. We need to get better at it. We need to schedule it. We need to be purposeful about it. And a great little acronym I've learned and created with respect to this is CARL. CARL is giving some people recognition feedback. We don't just say, hey, great job, but actually give them CARL. What's CARL? Context. What was set the stage? What happened? Action. What did you actually do that was so great? What was the difference, the impact you made? That's the result. And then link it back to this is why this is important and why our organization is better off. Just yesterday with one of the team members here, we had a great meeting, and I didn't, getting ready for this, and I said, I need to Carl them. So I said, hey, listen, here's what went down. I don't know if you realized it or not, but here's what you did that was incredibly amazing. This is the difference to make, but most importantly, here's why our organization and the customer we're working with at the moment is better off. And of course, great leadership builds and maintains trust. It's at the core of everything that a great organization, a great leader does, because we value our people. We know them, we grow them, we inspire them, we involve them, we reward them. That's a great summary of good leadership, which builds trust, which then drives your engagement scores through the roof. So, summarize this. Lots to throw at you today. Winning organizations fundamentally have effective leadership that are aligned to culture and get great engagement. If you practice culture by design, we actually can measure culture. We can actually help you with that. We can also work together to build effective cultures. The best way, especially in this environment, especially in a work from home environment, is empower your leaders and train your leaders. Let's build up our leadership. And I think you're going to see a great impact on culture throughout not just your organization, but organizations as well. It starts and ends with leadership. Shameless self-plug here, but if you find this is interesting, despite the fact that I have crappy technology that will be fixed immediately after this webinar, I've written a book called Desexify Work. It's currently with Amazon, and unfortunately, because of COVID, Amazon is having a hard time getting to categorization of the book, so it's a little bit delayed. But nonetheless, doesn't everybody deserve a great place to work? This has been one of my life passion and whatnot. If you're interested, we're in a soft launch right now. Whistle over to desexifywork.com. Yes, I did name it Desexify Work. To reserve a copy, we'll send you a link. We're hoping to have it released sometime next week, but we are completely at the mercy of Amazon. So that's my shameless self-promotion today. You can send your send your comments later about that, but nonetheless, this is the style that the book is written in as well. So that is the end of my presentation on how we can impact culture in a virtual remote world. So I will stop the share. I think I'll stop the share and see what's going on. Allison, how are we doing?
Terry, thank you so much. Let's virtual high five that.
I can't hear a thing.
Boom.
Isn't that funny?
Boom.
I can't hear anything, which is very strange. So hold on one second.
You know, we've got.
Right now.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Perfect. You know, I think you really hit the nail on the head and validated a lot of what we're all feeling and thinking. There are so many nuggets that we're able to take throughout our day with that. I think it bears repeating. Culture eats strategy for breakfast, but culture gets its appetite from purpose. I love that. And I think we can all remember Carl very easily as we walk through our day and our weeks and our months. We've got a few minutes left, so I do just want to take a quick look in the Q&A and see if we've got a couple questions we want to put forward. The first one that came through is really interesting, and I'd be keen to hear your take. Should working from home be difficult, or should it be normal, considering at the end of the day, it's supposed to be home?
Well, my perspective on that, you can hear me okay, Allison? Yes?
Yep.
My perspective on that, and this is probably why I didn't do well at working from home, is home is my castle. Home is my place for respite. This is where I go to unwind. This is where I chill. This is where I decompress. And so when those two worlds have crashed, I think if you're struggling with that, I think you got to give yourself an okay. So people have said to me, okay, but Terry, I don't have a choice. I can't go to my office, it's locked. I can't get in, whatever. Then what I really, really strongly advocate people do is you build a special place. And I mean, not literally build, but you create a special place in your home that is the domain of work. And don't go there any other time. Turn it off. You know, some people, and you may not have that option, in which case try to build that space or create that space that is sanctimonious. That's the only place that work happens. Nothing else happens there but work. And then turn it off and leave it, and don't go near it on weekends or off hours or whenever you are in your decompressing mode. This is the part I struggled with the most, because for me, I was at the dining room table because kids and school and everything else going on. And I just, I was like, this is, I see that every day. I come into the kitchen, there's a dining room table. So every time I'm, stealing a snack at 10 o'clock at night, oh, there's work again. So build that barrier, build that buffer, because that's fundamentally what, we've been talking about for years up until this, which is I want work-life balance, right? And now that balance is gone. So try to recreate it somehow, be my advice. So.
Great, thanks, Terry. I'm gonna throw one more at you. If you're someone who's not in a formal leadership role, or maybe one of many on an HR team, how can you impact culture in a meaningful way while working remotely?
How do you impact in a meaningful way? I believe every single one of us has a leadership role in every organization, whether it's formal or informal. And I think, being able to be, compassionately empathetic with coworkers, be able to communicate with our fellow coworkers, to understand, to coach, to guide, to mentor, whatever the case may be. I don't think, sometimes we get hung up on what's official or what's, formalized. Don't think we need to be formalized. I think that, good human beings, nobody has a job description for mom or dad, or what's the job description for just being a good neighbor that checks in on the neighbor. There's no job description for that. There's nobody telling you, hey, you should go check in on your neighbor. It's the same thing inside an organization. Be a good organizational citizen. The organizational citizenship behavior is a concept we study, organizational behavior. I think you can do that without having the formal title of leader. I think many of the things that I described, although we did in the context of leadership, is not just the sole domain of those with the official title leader. So hopefully that answered that question.
Absolutely. Well, I want to keep an eye on the time, and
Sure.
I think we are running short on our time today, which simply flew by. Terry, thank you for being so nimble today. And
I don't know what's wrong. I mean, I'm immediately going to be on Google getting new headset from Staples or wherever.
we've all been there. We've all been there.
Yeah, exactly. So I do apologize, everybody. So
No worries. But, thank you so much for reminding us of how important it is not to lose sight of these things, and to remind us, to flip that narrative on how we're looking at our employees. Everything you shared today was so valuable. We're so appreciative of your time. And as I said, I think we'll be able to carry a lot of this through our day, into our weeks and beyond. Again, for everybody who's with us today, if you would like more time with Terry tomorrow, we are going to drop the link to sign up for an office hours session. There are still some spots available.
that'd be fun.
Absolutely.
Look at that. So, awesome.
And with that, I think that concludes our webcast today. On behalf of Tech Alliance, I thank you again for joining us. Stay safe and be well.
And we always have to wave at the end of every meeting, right? Thanks, everybody. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.